Sup folks, welcome to the part 10, of What If Deku Get Reborn as a Vampire. Chapter 66. There was only one vampire left to kill. Excluding Jaguaro, that is. After killing the invisible woman and using her DNA for that magic vampire tracking ritual, they've found one more vampire showing up on the map. This one was actually in Japan the whole time. They were gonna get after him when Izuku finished healing. He'd been shot by rifles before, but he'd never been shot by a machine gun like that. He expected it to be worse. He expected it to be a lot faster. Which it was, but he never really thought about how much bigger the bullets were gonna be. The holes were like golf balls. They weren't actually that bad, but still. Knock knock knock, he'd better go see who that is. It's probably Grin. You better've brought some hooch, says Izuku as he opens the door. Oh, it's Yagi. Excuse me? Asks Yagi. You bring any booze? Asks Izuku. No. Says Yagi. Then leave. Says Izuku. He sticks his hand in the door. Wait. Fine, come on in. Says Izuku as he opens the door. How've you been? Asks Yagi as they both head to the couch. My boy, are you hurt? He's totally hurt. No. Why? Asks Izuku. You look hurt. Says Yagi. All right. I've been bar fighting a little. It's nothing serious. Just a scratch. Says Izuku. He's lying, he got shot. You shouldn't be doing that. Says Yagi. Who left and made you my dad? Also, don't call me your boy. Says Izuku. Yagi opens his mouth. Don't answer that. Says Izuku before Yagi says anything. What are you doing here, Yagi? Well, I have a couple things to talk about. I've been pretty busy and I've kind of been putting them off. Says Yagi. Yeah, whatever. Just ask. Says Izuku. Well, I told your mother about me. Says Yagi. Good. What did she say? Asks Izuku. She was surprised. She fainted. She woke up and she said she was okay. Says Yagi. Did she say anything about how it would affect your relationship? Asks Izuku. She said it was okay. I think she's still kind of coming to terms with it. We still plan on being together for the foreseeable future. Says Yagi. Shit. Says Izuku. All Might gives him a pointed look that almost comes off as apologetic. What else did you want to talk about? Asks Izuku. That time you pulled a gun on me. Says Yagi. That wasn't real. Says Izuku. I'm pretty sure it happened. Says Yagi. The gun, bravo. Says Izuku. Who? Asks Yagi. You know, like, Johnny. Says Izuku. Who's Johnny Bravo? Asks Yagi. Get out of my house. Says Izuku. Wait, I'll learn who Johnny Bravo is. Says Yagi. Fine, what else do you want? Asks Izuku. So the gun wasn't real? Asks Yagi. No. Says Izuku. Now what else do you want? Do you want to do something together? Asks Yagi. He doesn't believe him. You're really trying that? Asks Izuku. Wait, no, I don't like that at all. Are you trying to take on a fatherly role? I'd like to be a family man. Says Yagi. You're not my dad. Says Izuku. I'm not trying to be, but I'd like to get to know you better. Your mother wants me to get to know you better too. Says Yagi. Izuku reaches under his coffee table and pulls out a pistol. Not again. Says Yagi. Izuku pulls the trigger to reveal the gun is a lighter. Is that what you had last time? Asks Yagi. Yup. Says Izuku. It looks a little different. Says Yagi. It's the same. Says Izuku. Yagi's convinced that it's the same. He's learned that memory isn't always reliable. Even if he wasn't convinced, he'd never get Izuku to tell him it wasn't. You bar fight often? Asks Yagi. It's fun. Says Izuku. And as long as we have witnesses to say it was an issued fight, it isn't illegal. Really? Asks Yagi. Yeah. It came into effect about 5 years ago, says Izuku. All Might hums in response. Izuku smiles. Come on, let's go. Where? Asks Yagi. Let's go for a drive, says Izuku as he looks out the window. That your truck? Yeah, says Yagi. Let me drive it, says Izuku. Says Yagi. Trust me, says Izuku. Okay, let's go, says Yagi, knowing he can fix pretty much any situation Izuku brings them into. Izuku takes Yagi's keys and hops into the driver's seat of his truck. Yagi takes a seat next to him. It feels weird to ride in the passenger seat of my own truck, says Yagi. It feels weird to be next to you, says Izuku. All Might sighs. What do I have to do to get you to respect me? I respect you. I don't much like you, but I respect you. The only reason I don't like you is because I'm petty. I'm not above admitting that. You're a good guy. You're good for her, says Izuku. I'm never gonna forget what you said to me. I know why you said it. I understand completely. I'm just being petty because you're probably right. I've been thinking a lot about you, my boy, says Yagi. Shut the fuck up, says Izuku. My bad, says Yagi. When you moved in to save your friend from the sludge villain, what were you thinking? I wasn't, says Izuku. They say that's the mark of a true hero, says Yagi. Izuku thinks back on a talk he had with All For One. What are you trying to do? Asks Izuku. Would you like to inherit my power? Asks Yagi. Nope, says Izuku immediately. What? Asks Yagi. You can pass on your quirk, right? Asks Izuku, knowing the answer. Yes, I'd like you to be my successor, says Yagi. Would you lose it? Asks Izuku, still knowing the answer. I would, but I'm fine with that, says Yagi. Thanks, but I don't want it, says Izuku. Can I ask why? Asks Yagi. Izuku sighs. I'm not sure it's for me. Don't get me wrong. I want to help people. I'd still like to be a hero. Maybe. I'm not sure being a symbol of peace is for me. Sometimes I'm not sure if being a hero is for me. I'm not too sure about a whole lot recently. I'm sorry to hear that, says Yagi. I'm still gonna take A's entrance exam, says Izuku. I'm gonna have to register some tools, but I probably have more experience fighting than 80% of the people trying for it. I think you should go for it, says Yagi. I thought you said I should try to be more realistic, says Izuku. I know this isn't what you want to hear, but I stand by that. Take the test though. If you pass, you change my mind. If you fail, you'll still have a good time with how much you seem to like fighting, says Yagi. Yeah, I'll take it, says Izuku. He's got nothing to lose from taking it. He knows he can't use his vampire powers, but it'll be good for him. If he passes, that is. Hey Yagi? Asks Izuku. Yeah? Asks Yagi. You met Katsueki, right? Asks Izuku. I'm a big fan of his. What was he like? He was wild. He was younger than I thought he'd be. He was about your age. Your height and build and hair and eye color. Actually, he looked a whole lot like you, says Yagi. That question was a terrible mistake. But he had an axe that I recognize. There's no way you could have gotten your hands on that. Although your guitar looks very similar to it, says Yagi. Oh god, oh fuck. He has super strength though. Although his strength was a power that could be given, says Yagi. Shit. Are you Katsueki? Asks Yagi. No, that's stupid, says Izuku. I asked you a simple question and you go off on whatever that was. I mean seriously, Yagi, what the hell are you talking about? Yagi assumes that it's just coincidental. That kind of thing just doesn't happen in real life. Yeah. You wouldn't ask that question if you were Katsueki, says All Might. To answer your question, he was scared. He was slippery, and while I didn't exactly have a hard time keeping up with him, he always seemed to slip through my fingers. It was impressive, honestly. You see that beach? Says Izuku as he points out to the beach he cleaned with Hatsune. Yeah. Says Yagi. Let's go for a walk. Says Izuku. Sure. Says Yagi. I've been thinking about getting into vigilantism. Says Izuku. My starts Yagi, young man, that's illegal. So's drinking, but I still do that. Says Izuku. You shouldn't. Says Yagi. No offense, but I'm not taking life advice from the loneliest man on earth. Says Izuku, and it's not even illegal if I don't use a quirk, which I don't have. I didn't know that. I still think it's a bad idea. Says Yagi. I've fought villains and won before. Says Izuku. You have? Asks Yagi. I told you I go bar fighting. I don't start fights with people I don't know anything about. Says Izuku. You win? Asks Yagi. Some. Says Izuku as he comes across a football that washed up on shore. He tosses it to Yagi. You can't win 'em all. Maybe you can be a hero. Says Yagi. Why does he feel like that? He feels like crying. It wasn't all that special. He's not gonna cry over it, but he feels like he's gonna. I could take a bat or a sledgehammer and be just as effective as any hero. Says Izuku. Well, not any hero, but I think I could make it. It still bothers him that he had to stop himself from crying. He was past that. I've seen some of those videos you post. Says Yagi. The hero philosophy ones or the music videos? Asks Izuku. Both. Says Yagi. Endorse my music publicly, make me rich. Says Izuku. Sure. Says Yagi. Do you really think everything you say? Yep. All the heroes I mention as scummy are heroes I personally know are doing something wrong. Says Izuku. How do you know this? Asks Yagi. I hang around with the right crowds. Says Izuku. I'm not sure you should be spending time with these people. Says Yagi. I know they're scummy people. Says Izuku, but one thing each and every one of those scummy little bastards have over clean people is loyalty. We'd take a bat to the side of the head for each other if we had to. There are loyal people everywhere. Says Yagi. Yeah, but I don't want to sift through them. Says Izuku. I've seen your kind of crowd turn on each other. Says Yagi. Yeah, but when my people are disloyal they're more upfront with it. Says Izuku. You don't trust Easy, do you? Asks Yagi. Trust has been broken. Why would I let it break again? Asks Izuku. I wish it was easier for you to trust me. Says Yagi. Believe me, so do I. Says Izuku. I'm still sorry it isn't. Says Yagi. No, that's pity. Izuku doesn't like that. Time to change the subject. You're not gonna tell Mom about all the shit I've been up to, are you? Asks Izuku. I feel like I should. Says Yagi. Bastard. Says Izuku. But trust has been broken. Why would I break it again? Asks Yagi. You're alright for a bastard. Says Izuku. Thank you. Says Yagi. Hums Izuku. This has been a pretty good talk. Says Yagi. Yup. Says Izuku. Wanna head back? Asks Yagi. Sure. Replies Izuku. Izuku and Yagi get back in Yagi's truck and head back to Izuku's house. Izuku insisted on driving. So, are we okay? Asks Yagi. I mean. You know what I mean. No. Says Izuku. We're not okay as long as I refuse to be, and I still don't want us to be. Well, I tried. Says Yagi. But, I'll try too. Says Izuku. I don't know what we'll get out of it, but I'll try to be okay. Chapter 67. Well, there was just one left. This one was in Japan. It was right under his nose. He or she was hiding up Mount Fuji. Not too high up, but up there a good distance. The three of them were ready. They'd brought food and water to endure the hike up the mountain. They imagine they won't reach the man until a day or so into the trek. Oh, there he is. Oh shit. says Izuku. You've come here to kill me? Asks the man. He was dressed very traditionally. He was dressed like a samurai. He wore a kimono and had a katana on his side. Yup, says Izuku, although I try not to if I don't have to. I won't change my stance for you, says the samurai. So you're going with a samurai gimmick? Asks Izuku. It's no gimmick, says the samurai. Geez, you're old, says Izuku. He looks at Speed Demon. You dress like a samurai. The unmask is a little much, says the samurai. It's to spook people, says Speed Demon. It's not working, says the samurai. Not on you, replies Speed Demon. He tell you we were coming? Asks Izuku. I could tell on my own, says the samurai. Wow, you must have really sharp senses, says Izuku. I do, he replies. So we both know there's no chance of this going peacefully. You want to get started, or should we get to know each other better? Asks Izuku. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die where my master used to live, says the samurai. Up the mountain? Asks Izuku. He nods. Izuku sighs. Fine. You seem like a nice enough guy. We'll come with you. I don't want to do that, says Speed Demon. I'll fly you both up, says Izuku. You can fly? Asks the samurai. Can't you? Asks Izuku. Can you turn invisible? Asks the samurai. Wow, you're smarter than you look. Which shouldn't be too hard, says Izuku. So that's how you do it, says the samurai. Yep, says Izuku. If you manage to kill me, one of my lesser powers is refill. It replenishes the fluid in any bottle. The gourd on my back hasn't gone dry since the Edo period, says the samurai. You got seiken there? Asks Izuku. I do, replies samurai. I'll keep it stocked, don't worry, says Izuku. Thank you, says samurai. All three of them hold or are held by Izuku as he takes off in the direction samurai told him to go. I thought you'd be faster, says samurai. I normally am, says Izuku. Fair, says samurai. Hey most vampires I meet give off a negative energy, says Gabby, but you don't really seem like a mean person. I'm only cruel when I have to be. I fight to serve my master, says samurai. He's alive? Asks Izuku. I serve his final command, says samurai. I was ordered to do what I could for our species to survive. So he was a vampire too, says Izuku. What killed him? Her ancestors, says samurai. That'll do it. She nearly killed me when we first met, says Izuku. Izuku lands on a leveled out part of the mountain as samurai instructed. So we're fighting here? Asks Izuku as he looks down the mountain. It's a nice place. I've always wanted to die to a view. I've usually spent my time dying with my face pressed against the don't get to see a whole lot from down there. You'll get a nice view, says samurai. I'm sure you will, says Izuku. Gabby, Speed Demon and samurai draw their swords while Izuku takes out his axe. Izuku dives in with a flurry of swings. He finds himself yanked forward and slashed across the back. He rolls out and turns to face him. Gabby goes in with her sword but finds herself on the ground before samurai can finish. He blocks a blow from Speed Demon and Izuku dives back in. The fight goes on like this. None of them can land a blow on him. This guy could probably survive a fight with Stain if they really went at it. Damn, you're good, says Izuku. That's what happens when you dedicate yourself to an art, says samurai. When you spend hundreds of years mastering it. That's a long time, says Izuku. Far too long, says samurai as he brings his sword through Izuku's bicep and throws him to the ground. The fight continues. They still can't touch him. They've hit his kimono and forced him to block with his sheath, but they just can't hit him. He reacts to what they're about to do before they even do it. Izuku jumps back and fires off 3 shots with his revolver. The man jumps away from 2 and blocks the last one. That was impressive, says Izuku. It's excellence, says Samurai. It's what I strive for. It's what I've made habit. He kicks Speed Demon in the chest and knocks the wind out of him. Izuku chases him away from Speed Demon with another 3 shots. Izuku dashes forwards, and turns invisible. He can't move, but Samurai shouldn't know that. Izuku blocks a swing that was aimed right at him. He can hear or smell better than Izuku though. If you're going to try something like that, quit smoking, says Samurai. I'll keep that in mind next time, says Izuku. Speed Demon still hasn't gotten up. Shit, he's out. Gabby, rush him, keep up the pressure, says Izuku. They both bull rush Samurai. Even he has trouble keeping up with attacks from both sides. He's getting pushed back. The Samurai drops his sword as Izuku's axe makes contact with it. Izuku doesn't exactly see all of it, but he sees something reflective next to his eye. He feels his skin tear open on the side of his face and he can't see out of his left eye. He falls back when the blade hits him. He hears Gabby shriek in pain. He looks to where Gabby landed. Oh, Gabby was still on her feet. It was her arm that landed. Oh shit. Izuku springs up and goes after Samurai with renewed vigor. His arm gets slashed and his axe flies out of his hands. A burst of movement and Speed Demon slashed the back of his legs. Izuku takes this chance to hit him in the jaw. He wrenches the sword from his hands and brings it across his chest. He falls and makes no effort to get up. You done? Asks Izuku. Samurai stares at him and nods. You fought well. It was a little underhanded, but I understand, says Samurai. You're not a regenerator? Asks Izuku. Never had it, says Samurai as he crawls his way to the cliffside. Speed Demon, help her out, says Izuku. Speed Demon complies. Samurai rises to his knees and sticks his head out forward. You were honestly one of the most skilled fighters I've seen, says Izuku. Without a real master it's worthless strength, says Samurai. Izuku raises the katana over his head. You ready? The katana and the gourd are yours, just keep the sake flowing. Master's command, says Samurai. Now do it. Izuku brings the sword down on the back of the man's neck. He slides over and falls to the ground. Izuku promptly stakes him before the soul leaves the body. Speed Demon, I'll be back, says Izuku. I'm gonna get her help as fast as I can, then I'll be back. He nods. Izuku flies over to Recovery Girl's house. He had Aizawa tell him where it is. With her permission, of course. It's a summer afternoon, so she should be home. What is it? Asks Chio as she comes to the door. Evening, ma'am, says Izuku. Bring her in, says Chio. Izuku lays her on Chio's coffee table. Sorry to spring this on you, says Izuku. I'm sure you are, says Chio as she plants a kiss on Gabby's forehead. She gonna be alright? Asks Izuku. She'll live. You do this? Asks Chio. No, says Izuku. She's a hunter. I just thought it was possible, says Chio. She's been helping me fight some vampires here and there, says Izuku. And this is how you pay her back? Asks Chio. Izuku dry chuckles at that. I'll pay her back with a prosthetic. I have a guy for pretty much everything. Well, the wound is sealed. She'll live. She won't wake up for a while, but she'll live, says Chio. Thank you, says Izuku. Anything I can do to pay you back? Chio promptly pulls out her cane and slams it over Izuku's head. The cane bends around Izuku's head like in Tom and Jerry. Be careful next time, or better yet, don't let there be a next time. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, ma'am, says Izuku as he scoops up Gabby and heads out. Don't let me catch you back here, says Chio. Sorry, ma'am, but I don't think I can avoid it given my record, says Izuku. Well, try, says Chio. Yes'm, says Izuku. as he sprout swings and carries Gabby back to his house. Izuku sets Gabby on the couch and leaves to pick up Speed Demon. Is she gonna be okay? Asks Speed Demon. She'll live, says Izuku. They didn't say much after that. Izuku dropped him off at their usual meeting spot under the bridge and they both went off to whatever they needed to do. Izuku came back home and waited for Gabby to wake up. Who's she? Asks Eri. She's a friend of mine, says Izuku. We just finished fighting someone tough. Is she dead? Asks Eri. No, she's alive. She should be fine apart from the arm, says Izuku. Who was the tall man here yesterday? Asks Eri. Oh, him, says Izuku. He's dating my mom. His name is Yagi. You don't like him? Says Eri. No, but he's a good person. I actually trust him with my life. I just don't like him because I'm petty, says Izuku. Eri nods along sagely. Izuku knows Eri well enough to know when she wants something. She's always hesitant to ask, but he knows. So Eri, is there anything I can do for you while I wait for her to wake up? Asks Izuku. I'm hungry, says Eri. Well, we can't have that, says Izuku as he scoops her up and carries her to the kitchen. One meal later and Izuku and Eri are sitting on opposite sides of the kitchen table rolling the ball back and forth to each other. That's adorable, comes Gabby's voice. You're up faster than I expected, says Izuku. How long have I been out? Like a week? Asks Gabby. Like 2 hours, says Izuku. I had a healing quirk used on your arm. Oh, so it sealed fast, says Gabby. Yep. Hey, wait here a minute, I'll be right back, says Izuku as he carries Eri back to her room. He could tell she wanted to be away from the stranger. Thank you, says Eri. Anytime, replies Izuku as he leaves Eri's room and strolls back downstairs. You and your daughter are cute, says Gabby. I know. Grab a Red Bull from the fridge. I know you're tired, says Izuku. She complies. Come on. I know a girl who could set up a good prosthetic for you, says Izuku. Cool, says Gabby. Izuku and Gabby make their way to Hatsume's workshop. How you holding up? Asks Izuku. Still coming to terms with it, says Gabby. Any pain? Asks Izuku. A little, says Gabby. Open the glove box, says Izuku. She opens the glove box to see a gun, a knife, vehicle registration and a flask. Drink, says Izuku. Sure, says Gabby as she takes a swig. Izuku reaches over and takes a drink before passing it back to Gabby. Don't do that, says Gabby. It's fine, says Izuku. The two of them park and walk into the warehouse. Hatsume calls out Izuku. Green machine, comes Mai's voice. How you doing? Asks Izuku. Good. What you need? Asks Mai. New arm for her, says Izuku. Gotcha. I'ma measure it then give me like 30 minutes, says Mai. Mai measures the arm that remains and heads into her lab to work. Izuku and Gabby look around the warehouse at all the stuff Mai built. That looked an awful lot like a rocket launcher. That's a whole ass rocket launcher, says Gabby. Yup, says Izuku. I kinda want it. Hey starts Gabby. Asks Izuku. When we killed Jaguaro, and you become king, are you gonna repopulate? Asks Gabby. Izuku gives her a joking seductive look. She laughs at him. Not too sure, says Izuku. I might eventually, but definitely not for a while. Makes sense, says Gabby. What are you gonna do? Asks Izuku. All the vampires, at least the ones you want dead, are gone. I'll probably move on to demons and ghosts. Not as much fight as a vampire but much harder to track. I'm sure I can keep myself busy, says Gabby. You gonna go back to full-time vigilantism? Yeah, I am. I'm also thinking about applying to UA, says Izuku. You'll have to do it quirkless, won't you? Asks Gabby. You fight pretty well without a quirk. You could take a couple prows. Says Izuku. Yeah, but I'm a better fighter than you. Says Gabby. Sure, but I'm bigger, stronger, and faster. Says Izuku. I'm sure I'll manage. Good for you, dude. Says Gabby. I'm back. Says Mai. Hey. Says Izuku. Put this on. She says as she shoves a metal arm into Gabby. Gabby fits the arm onto her shoulder. She moves it around for a bit. Great, isn't it? Asks Mai. Yeah, how does it work? Asks Gabby. It'd go right over your head. Says Mai a little too bluntly. Also, here's an instruction manual for the flamethrower, knife launcher, and I noticed you have a chain on your belt, so it has instructions on how to fit the chain into and through your new arm. You did all this in 30 minutes? Asks Gabby. I also made a bomb that might go off. Says Mai. Boom. Guess that answers that. Says Mai. Hey Mai? Asks Izuku. Yeah? Asks Mai. Can I have this rocket launcher? Asks Izuku. Sure. I'll deliver about 40 rockets to your place by next Sunday. Says Mai. Cool, thanks. Also, is this legal? Asks Izuku. Not to my knowledge. Anyway, have fun with it. Says Mai. I will. Says Izuku. Tell me how it works. Says Mai. You won't be able to get me to stop talking about it. Says Izuku. Well, Gabby, you ready to go home? Yeah. Also, my dad might try to kill you for this, so just watch out for that. Says Gabby. Oh. Says Izuku. Chapter 68. Gabby ended up spending the night at Izuku's. She didn't want to let her parents see her just yet, but they knew they'd have to go and get it over with eventually. I'll go with you. Says Izuku. You will? Asks Gabby. Sure, I owe your parents an explanation and an apology. Says Izuku. It wasn't your fault. Says Gabby. Will they care? Asks Izuku. Probably. They're protective but fair. Says Gabby. Shit, I hope you're right. Says Izuku. A little later in the morning, they're walking to the Belmont home. Gabby wanted to walk a little. She was still hesitant to show her parents what happened. Dracula's castle casts its shadow on them as they walk. So, we're gonna fight the king pretty soon, huh? Asks Gabby. We are. I'd like you to stay back on that one though. Says Izuku. I'm coming with you. Says Gabby. I didn't mean it like that. Says Izuku. I want to fight him one-on-one. If I lose, step in for me. I just feel like he deserves it. Why? He's awful. Says Gabby. He's bad, I get that. Says Izuku. But realistically, how far would you be willing to go if humans were about to go extinct? Would you ruin another sentient species to save your own? Are you having second thoughts? Asks Gabby. No, actually. I've killed too many vampires to have second thoughts now. Says Izuku. I'm not saying he's right, but I almost understand where he's coming from. Do you think you can beat him alone? Asks Gabby. Maybe. I'm gonna bring you and Speed Demon along if I can't. With all the powers I stole, I feel like I can squeeze through. Says Izuku. By the way, the samurai's power wasn't enhanced senses. It wasn't. Asks Gabby. No, that was just something he taught himself. His power was growth. Says Izuku. How'd you find that out? Asks Gabby. I was in bed and Toga starts Izuku. Uh-oh. Says Gabby. Not like that. I was just laying there thinking about how much I've grown since becoming a vampire, and I grew and pushed Toga off the bed. Says Izuku. How big did you get? Asks Gabby. Around 10 feet, 3.048 meters. Says Izuku. That's really tall. Says Gabby. I've met taller. Says Izuku. So, you're probably gonna become the Vampire King soon. Says Gabby. Here's hoping. Says Izuku. How do you feel about that? Asks Gabby. Is there any topic you won't bring up to distract yourself from the thought of seeing your parents? Asks Izuku. Says Gabby. I'm kidding. I don't really care too much actually. Says Izuku. I mean, at that point what am I really the king of? It's just me and my aunt left after that. I don't feel like I'd ever rule over her. She's so cool and nice. She'd be a good queen, come to think of it. Gabby stares at the gates to her home. It'll be okay. Just think about how funny it's gonna be to watch them chase me around. I'm calling it now. One of them will have a hammer and he'll hit me over the head. It's gonna make that funny coconut bonk sound. Says Izuku. Gabby laughs at that. Okay, that'd be pretty funny. Let's get this over with. She rings the doorbell. That's the spirit. It's like ripping off a band-aid. Says Izuku. The gate opens and Gabby's parents are there and her cousins, and aunts and uncles, and holy shit, the whole family's there. Hey, sweetie. How've you? Oh my god. Says Mr. Belmont. Howdy Mr. Belmont. Says Izuku. Wow, it took you a while. Says Mr. Belmont. What? Asks Gabby. I was 14 the first time I was maimed. Says Mr. Belmont. Says Gabby. Grandpa was 9. He actually rammed the finger he lost into the vampire's eye. He always was the toughest person I've ever met. Says Mr. Belmont. You're not worried? Asks Gabby. I mean, it's part of the job. If it bothers you we can talk about it. I'm always here for you. Says Mr. Belmont. I thought it would upset you. Says Gabby. Well, I was starting to think it'd never happen. I lost a bet or two with some of the relatives. I'm not upset though. My right thumb and pointer finger, along with my left eye, are both fake. Granted, an arm is a lot to lose, but you got a cool metal one. Says Mr. Belmont. My left foot is fake. Adds Mrs. Belmont. Various family members chime in about injuries they've received over the years. One dude lost both legs. Izuku can't help but wonder who does their prosthetics. They look pretty real. It takes a while to go over all the injuries. It's a surprisingly big family. You'd expect it to get cut down a little given their lines of work. At some point during this conversation it dawned on Izuku that Gabby's never gotten seriously injured before now. Honestly, good for her. Izuku and Gabby meet each other's eyes for a solid 10 seconds and shrug. Oh, but I'm pissed at you, boy. Says Mr. Belmont. Me? Asks Izuku. Who else? Asks Mr. Belmont. Fair, but don't be mad at me. Be proud of her. She really came in clutch. Says Izuku. Really? Asks Mr. Belmont. Was it actually that easy to distract this guy? Yeah, she practically killed him herself and he was kicking my ass. Says Izuku. Gabby snorts. You should have seen her. She was everywhere. It was one hell of a sight. Says Izuku. Was he strong? Asks Mr. Belmont. Not really, but this guy had finesse. Says Izuku. I barely hit the guy once the whole time. She's got to be one of the best fighters I've ever seen. Who's better? Asks Gabby. The hero killer Stain, and the samurai. Says Izuku. Who's the samurai? Asks Mr. Belmont. The guy we just killed. Says Izuku. Oh, that makes sense. Says Mr. Belmont. You know what, boy? You're off my shit list, I guess. Just don't let it happen again. Gee, thanks. Says Izuku. The only reason you're off is because my daughter says you're a good guy. Keep that in mind. Says Mr. Belmont. You got it. Says Izuku. So he's off your shit list? Comes one of the cousins. Yep. Says Mr. Belmont. The entire family turns and walks away talking among themselves. They were just here to fuck him up, if need be. Welp. I'm heading back inside. You two have fun. Says Mr. Belmont. Not that kind of fun though. I've got a girlfriend. Says Izuku. Oh, I thought there was something going on there. Says Mr. Belmont. No, never. Says Izuku. Yeah, that's nasty. Says Gabby. Good. You had me worried. Says Mr. Belmont as he walks into the Belmont home. So you talk about me? Asks Izuku. Little. Says Gabby. What do you say? Asks Izuku. Normally how dumb you are. Says Gabby. They didn't figure that out already? Asks Izuku. Gabby laughs at that. I also tell them how funny you are. Dumb and funny are some of my best qualities. Says Izuku. So when are we gonna get Jaguaro? Asks Gabby. I'll pick you up in 3 days. Says Izuku. Sounds good. Says Gabby. I'm gonna go to Dracula's castle. Says Izuku. I've never been in there and it's probably cool. Have fun. I'm gonna sharpen my tools. Says Gabby. Yeah, see you in 3 days. Says Izuku as he starts his short walk to Dracula's castle. See you. Says Gabby. Ruby once told him the castle used to move. That's probably why it was right next to the Belmont stronghold. One thing that surprised Izuku was he felt stronger when he entered the castle. It's like it was night all day long. Interestingly enough, his senses didn't work too well in here either. Izuku wandered the halls for a while. He could tell it was huge from the outside, but something about actually being here was different. It felt almost sacred. Izuku didn't pursue that train of thought because it seemed sacrilegious. Hello boy, says Jaguaro. Oh. Hey dude. Says Izuku. Dude? Asks Jaguaro. Sorry. You kinda caught me off guard. Says Izuku. You thinking about something? Asks Jaguaro. Yeah, but if I say what it is, it'll ruin the moment. Says Izuku. Go ahead and say it anyway. Says Jaguaro. Okay, so you know how on Halloween, there's the candy bowl that says take one. And somebody's totally gonna show up, and take the whole bowl. I don't even mean everything in the bowl, I mean the bowl. I've always wanted to be the scarecrow that waits by the bowl. You know, the one you look at and wonder if that's a guy in a suit or if it's a prop, like a decoration. I'd want to be that guy. The one that scares the shit out of the shit goblins that steal the candy. Says Izuku. Well, you were right, that totally ruined the moment. Says Jaguaro. I thought you were thinking about the morality of our conflict and ways to avoid it. Not really. I try not to second guess my morals in case I overthink things and make the wrong decision. Also, you totally love being the scarecrow. It's gotta be hilarious. Says Izuku. Jaguaro cracks a smile. You're right actually. I'd enjoy that. Maybe we're more alike than we think. Says Izuku. I've thought that for a while. Says Jaguaro. It's why I'd still like us to work together. You know that's not happening. Says Izuku. At least hear me out. Says Jaguaro. I've heard you out. Says Izuku. And I've changed since then. Says Jaguaro. Oh yeah? How've you changed? Asks Izuku. I've talked to people who might consider becoming like us. Quirkless people. I've talked to them. They told me about how it feels to be quirkless. Says Jaguaro. I never knew how resilient humans could be. How much they could take and keep going. It's impressive, it really is. So your plans are changing? Asks Izuku. I think we can coexist. Says Jaguaro. I really do. I can take a quirkless person and give them a power. It helps them and it repopulates us. You could serve as an example on how to get blood. You never hurt anybody who doesn't deserve it. I wish that were true. Says Izuku. Even if it isn't, it's what you strive to do. Says Jaguaro. I know you don't want us to go extinct. This is the best compromise for both of us. Izuku's normally super good at telling when somebody is lying to him. He feels like he's been getting lied to, forever. He isn't getting any signs that Jaguaro is lying to him. But it would be. Says Izuku. What's stopping it? Asks Jaguaro. You're, says Izuku. I'm what? Asks Jaguaro. You're lying to me? Says Izuku. I'm not. I swear I'm not, says Jaguaro. Izuku hates when he stutters. He thought he grew out of that. I don't know that though. Alucard thought you were being honest with him. Look what happened to him. I'm not letting that happen to me. Trust me, it won't, says Jaguaro. Izuku takes his necklace off but doesn't transform it yet. Why the hell would I trust you? What are you even doing here? Asks Izuku. I'm here to tell you the truth. I'm here so we both get what we want and we don't fight, says Jaguaro. How long? How long until you go back on that? For all I know, you could gain my trust. Then you could build up your vampire army, kill me, then go on with your goal, says Izuku. I can't get you to trust me, can I? Asks Jaguaro. Would you trust you? Asks Izuku. Jaguaro looks down before shaking his head. No. No, I wouldn't. You're telling me exactly what I wanted to hear from you. I hate it when people do that. It's always a lie, says Izuku. Does that mean you're going to try to kill me? Asks Jaguaro. I don't want to. I really don't. I'd love to see us thrive, but I can't trust you after everything you've done, says Izuku. After everything you did to Alucard. I can't excuse what you did to Vlad. He had it coming. Alucard was a good person. He didn't deserve that. Jaguaro pulls a knife out of his pocket. The knife grows into a rapier. Then we really have to do this? Asks Jaguaro. I don't see any way out, says Izuku. Consider I'm telling the truth, which I am. Think of what you're throwing away, says Jaguaro. Izuku finally materializes Vlad's, no his, double-sided battle axe. Think of what I'm letting go if you're lying, says Izuku. Jaguaro sighs. When all is said and done. When you die because you refuse to trust someone who's only telling you the truth, I hope you can find peace, says Jaguaro. We've had our disagreements, but I look at you and see a proud young monster. I see a monster struggling to be a better man. I even see a little bit of myself. I've got nothing but respect for you. Please just trust me. I can help us. Let me help us. When you get to hell, I want you to march to Dracula and beg for forgiveness. If you make it to heaven, ask Alucard for the same, says Izuku. When you get to heaven, tell him, I'm sorry, says Jaguaro. Chapter 68+1. It's been 3 days since Gabby last saw Izuku. He was supposed to come by today and pick her up. It was kind of weird that he hadn't yet. He was normally pretty good about stuff like that. If he couldn't make it or was gonna show up later than his usual time, he usually texts or calls her first. She tried texting Speed Demon, but he hasn't heard from Izuku since she lost her arm. That's actually really concerning. After Speed Demon, she tried texting Toga. They live together, she has to know where he is. After a brief conversation with Toga, Gabby was actually really worried. Toga hadn't seen Izuku since they hunted down the samurai. She tried calling him. That guy Dabi tried calling him, and someone she hadn't met named Grin called him too. None of them got an answer. Grin tried tracking Izuku. Apparently he kept a tracker on him for corpse retrieval. For some reason Grin couldn't pick up a signal at all. Gabby couldn't believe that he'd actually be stupid enough to go fight Jaguaro alone. She was fine with them having their fight, but she should have been there to bail him out. Now she has to get her sister to track Izuku. Which she did, or at least tried to. Izuku wouldn't show up at all. She tried to track Jaguaro and he wouldn't show up either. Where the hell were they? Were they both dead? Gabby doesn't really know what to do. She decides to ask her older cousin for advice. He's always been good at stuff like this. Gabby's cousin was a little ways away from the compound at their outdoor shooting range. He was a fan of holy bullets. She explains the situation to him and asks what he thinks. That's a tough one, says Gabby's cousin. Wait a little while longer. See if you get a message or he shows up or something. If that doesn't work, I'd go to the last place you know the vampire you're hunting was. Should I wait or should I just go? Asks Gabby. Start getting ready to go. If you don't get anything by the time you're ready, then go out. If you need someone to go with you, don't hesitate to ask. Says cousin. Okay, I'm gonna go get ready. Unless I get a sign he's okay. Would you come with me? Asks Gabby. Izuku's axe lands between the two of them, embedding itself in the ground, as if it was a sign from God. Not long after, a rapier follows. They look up and holy shit, two people are fighting on top of Dracula's castle. Holy shit, it's them. Have they been there for 3 days? Izuku really hated this guy. Fighting him. Izuku was a little stronger and faster for the most part, but whenever he made progress or almost had him, his eyes would flash and he'd speed up. Izuku was figuring it out though. Whenever his eyes flash yellow, he was on the defensive and Izuku couldn't get a hit in. Whenever his eyes flash red, Izuku needs to stop attacking and put some distance between them. The first time Jaguaro did it, he nearly cut Izuku to ribbons. They'd been at it for a while too. The sun went down, the moon came up, and the sun came up again. They were both exhausted. Jaguaro wouldn't stop talking either. Izuku felt weird leaving him hanging, so he kept answering. He knows he's trying to kill him and all, but he owes him a decent response. You're really willing to let our entire species die out? Shouts Jaguaro. Izuku kicks him square inches the chest, sending him through a couple of walls. Interestingly enough, the castle regenerates the damage they've been dealing to it. For the last time. Yes. Says Izuku as he chases Jaguaro before the walls seal themselves. Izuku's getting worn down. He hasn't regenerated from the last hit he took, which he'd take as a sign that he's losing, except Jaguaro's eyes haven't been lighting up as much or as long as they used to. As soon as he breaks that iron defense, he's got the fight. A little while ago Jaguaro told him that's what he calls his defensive mode. He calls the offensive mode lightning offense. Izuku doesn't think either of these are very original. He's actually pretty sure that first one is a Pokemon move. Izuku hit Jaguaro with a flurry of attacks, causing Jaguaro's eyes to turn yellow. One hit finally made it through in the form of his shoulder to Jaguaro's face. The yellow sparked and dissipated. Right after that his eyes turned red and he landed a few good slashes on Izuku before Izuku slapped the shit out of him. Izuku noticed the color sparked and died out the way his defense did. With Jaguaro out of his energy, the fight started to go in Izuku's favor. It was slow, but he started getting cut less and he started landing strikes or cutting Jaguaro first. The fight continues. Izuku's sort of aware that he's been at this for 3 whole days. He wishes Gabby or Speed Demon were here. This is taking way too long. He's gone too long without a drink. He notices it when he knocks Jaguaro off balance and instead of hitting him he rams his face into Jaguaro's chest trying to bite at it. Jaguaro and Izuku end up on a walkway leading to one of the castle towers. Jaguaro managed to rip his axe from his hands and throw it from the castle. Izuku responds to this by tackling Jaguaro and hitting him twice in the face. He catches Jaguaro's sword and throws it when he swings at him. Now it's a fist fight. As soon as Jaguaro lost that weapon, Izuku started to roll him. It wasn't slow like earlier when he ran out of his eye power. It was fast and hard. Izuku threw him back into the castle and started to turn the fight around. He was throwing him through walls. He was kicking him into lower floors and throwing him through the ceiling above. He distantly heard Gabby call out for him. She was running towards the castle. He could see her out of a window. He'd have this over with before she could get there. Izuku's next milestone with this fight was when he broke Jaguaro's regeneration. Only downside was, Izuku was running on fumes at that point. They both were, but Izuku took the worst of it up until this point. After this, however, Jaguaro barely hit him. Izuku felt bad, of course. If he could have put Jaguaro down, he would have. He wasn't ready. He didn't have ammo. He lost his knife a while back. He could claw at him, but his claws were too short to kill him fast. So the fight dragged on. Izuku would hit Jaguaro with a combo that sent him reeling. Izuku would put him through a wall or a floor or the ceiling. Jaguaro got back up and Izuku did it again and again and again. Is this what it felt like to fight him? Please, says Jaguaro. Izuku hesitates. Jaguaro slashes at his throat. Izuku headbutts him and the cycle continues. Izuku won't hesitate again. Mercy, comes Jaguaro's shaky voice. Where was Alucard's mercy? Says Izuku before continuing. Please, I have a daughter, says Jaguaro. That one almost had him. It really did. He was lying to him like he lied to him earlier, like he lied to Alucard and the rest of the vampires he used to get power. Izuku kicks him in the stomach and sends him flying outside. He falls for a good 20 seconds before landing on a lower castle rooftop with a crunching noise. Izuku grows out his wings and follows him down. You don't have the right to use their powers, says Jaguaro. Maybe not. I plan on letting their souls go after this though. If that helps any, says Izuku. I won't let you take mine, says Jaguaro as he lunges at Izuku. Izuku meets him and slams him down. He stomps on his arm hearing another crunch. Jaguaro writhes in pain before getting back on his feet, but he makes no move to kill Izuku. It's not yours to take, says Jaguaro. I'm not taking it, says Izuku. I don't mean my soul, says Jaguaro. I don't wanna be king, but I've got to do this to you. I know what you're gonna do if I don't, says Izuku. You don't get to kill me, says Jaguaro. It's not your choice anymore. You had your chance, but you lied to me, says Izuku. No, you don't get to kill me, says Jaguaro as he takes a couple steps back and jumps. There was an odd moment of silence. Izuku didn't know what to feel. Shock? Disbelief? Joy? Honestly, he just felt robbed. He knows he shouldn't want to kill him. He knows better than anybody. But you can't fight your nature. Izuku thinks that's why he jumped. He can't sit by and do nothing. He can't watch himself lose. He certainly can't win. Not in the situation he was in. You can't fight nature. The only way out is to stop fighting. You want to make a change in the world, but you can't change yourself. Hell, maybe he was telling the truth. Maybe he had changed. Maybe it was Izuku who couldn't change. It's weird knowing he's the last real monster on Earth. Surreal isn't the right word, but it's close enough. That odd moment of silence is broken by a loud meaty sound, combined with a series of crunchy noises. That and Gabby yelling, "Holy shit!" Izuku walks over to the edge and looks down. He grows his wings out and jumps, slowing before he hits the ground. His legs buckle under him, but he gets back to his feet. "You killed him?" asks Gabby. "He jumped," says Izuku. "Gravity killed him." "You okay?" asks Gabby. "No. I'm cut up pretty bad. I'll probably die soon," says Izuku. "Let's head back." "Sure," says Gabby as she heads back home. "You coming?" Izuku's looking down at Jaguaro, who's got his hand wrapped around Izuku's ankle. "Holy shit, you're alive?" asks Izuku. Jaguaro tries to say something, but all Izuku can make out is a gurgling sound. "I get it," says Izuku as he lays down next to Jaguaro. "I hate dying alone." Jaguaro clears his throat. "You're really gonna let us die out?" asks Jaguaro. "For now. I might try to bring us back. It's not my top priority. If I do it, I'm gonna wait a while. I'll keep it in mind though," says Izuku. "Thank you," says Jaguaro. "Don't thank me," says Izuku. Jaguaro coughs out blood and goes limp. Izuku struggles to get back on his feet. He sees Gabby's hand, but he doesn't take it. "Let's go," says Izuku. Gabby hands him his axe and Jaguaro's sword. Izuku turns the axe back into a necklace and carries the sword. Izuku and Gabby start walking. Izuku's limping and spitting out blood, but he keeps moving. "You need me to help you?" asks Gabby. Izuku wraps his arm around her shoulder and puts his weight on her. Thank you. No problem. Says Gabby, you did good. I'm tired. Says Izuku. Sorry I didn't notice sooner. Says Gabby. I should call Toga. Says Izuku. Gabby wonders if he can hear her. She seemed worried. Says Gabby. Izuku glanced her way. Izuku doesn't really comprehend what happens after that. He just finds himself in Gabby's house in an armchair. You need anything? Asks Gabby. No. I'm gonna call Toga. Says Izuku. Sure. Let her know you're okay. Says Gabby. Ring ring ring, hey babe. Comes Toga's voice. Are you okay? I can come home soon. I don't have to worry about any more vampires. Says Izuku. Cool, but are you okay? Asks Toga. I'm tired. Says Izuku. Grin said you're showing up on his tracker again. He's gonna go pick you up. Says Toga. Cool, mutters Izuku. Eri and Dabi want to talk to you, okay? Asks Toga. Sure, put him on. Says Izuku. Hey man. Comes Dabi. Hey dude. Says Izuku. You okay? Asks Dabi. Izuku was a little tired of answering the same question, but Dabi deserves an answer. I'm a little beat up. I've had worse. I'm just really tired. Says Izuku. Hi Dad. Says Eri. Izuku's voice picks up instantly. Hey Eri. Sorry I was gone so long. I'll be home soon. I was so worried. Nobody could call you. Says Eri. I know. I'm sorry. You don't have to worry about me. Says Izuku. I'm tough. You're right. Sorry. Says Eri. Izuku sits up a little. You don't have to be sorry. You haven't done anything wrong. Says Izuku. I messed up and this whole thing was kinda my fault. Oh. Says Eri. Sweetie, I'm really tired. Can we talk when I get home? Asks Izuku. Oh okay. Says Eri. Izuku sighs. Wait. How about we talk until I fall asleep? How does that sound? Eri likes Izuku's compromise. She talks with Izuku for a minute or two. He doesn't say much. He mostly yes or no. Just like Izuku said he would. He fell asleep. Dad? Daddy? Says Eri. I think he fell asleep. Comes Toga's voice. Don't worry. He'll be home soon. Gabby tucks Izuku's phone into his pocket when she hears it start beeping. That was really sad. Just super depressing. It's gonna take her a while to shake that off. To be honest, the whole ordeal is gonna be weird to shake off. There aren't any more vampires to hunt. She could go after demons, but still. Well, maybe her family could finally get some rest. Izuku could get some rest too. He won't let himself. She knows that. At least he has the chance. Chapter 70. He did it. He beat him. He might not have killed him. Well, realistically he did, but you know what he means. He'd be seeing Eri soon, but he had something he needed to do before he sees her again. Oh, you're awake. Says Ruby. Izuku was on her couch. Grin dropped you off. I'll give you a ride back home. Says Ruby. No, not yet at least. Says Izuku. We gotta talk. Izuku'd love nothing more than to go home, shower and sleep for a week. He knows he can't because he'd miss Udate's entrance exam, but he'd still like to. He'd like it a lot. He's just so damn tired. But he needs to have this talk. I killed the guy who took Vlad from you. Says Izuku. Oh. Says Ruby. She didn't know what to say. Izuku didn't think he'd know what to say, either. It was a pretty hard bomb to drop, but she deserves to know. How much do you know about Vlad's death? Asks Izuku. Not much. Just that he died fighting some villain with All Might. All Might ended up killing the villain. Says Ruby, but I must be missing something. Izuku explains to her everything he's learned. He knows he doesn't have the whole picture. He can tell Vlad, Alucard, and All for One were all hiding some details from him, but he knew enough. He also doesn't tell her about All for One. If he can't fix it, he won't tell her. He'll tell her later. He's just not ready for that. That's a lot to take in, says Ruby. It was a whole lot to do, says Izuku. So we're all that's left? Asks Ruby. Yeah. It's just us, says Izuku. Should we do something about that? Asks Ruby. I won't, says Izuku, at least not for a good 50-60 years. It's not like I'm gonna get old anytime soon. Yeah. I guess we have time, says Ruby. Yup, says Izuku. So are you the vampire king now? Asks Ruby. Yep, says Izuku, kinda weird because according to vampiric law every living vampire is higher ranked than me. That's not that many, says Ruby. Izuku chuckles. His chest still hurts. Honestly, I feel kinda robbed, says Izuku. I'm the king of nothing and nobody. I don't even get the power buff I need to be 20. That's so dumb. I really don't understand this shit half the time. I guess I haven't matured enough as a vampire, says Izuku. You don't get stronger? Asks Ruby. No. I spoke with Vlad in hell earlier. I told him what happened. He taught me how to get rid of all the souls I've eaten. He then told me I don't even get stronger until like 5 years from now, says Izuku. Bummer, says Ruby. Look, I hate to cut this short, but can we go home? Asks Izuku. I've been fighting for 3 days straight. I'm covered in blood and dust. I pissed myself when I died. I gotta get out of these clothes. Ruby laughs at him. Sure thing, piss boy. Izuku laughs back. He has to stop himself. Man, his chest really hurts. He's still bleeding out of a couple cuts. The ride home was short and miserable. See ya, says Ruby. Try not to piss yourself. I'm gonna piss in your blue jeans, says Izuku as he hobbles up to the door. Hey guys, says Izuku. Oh my god, Abe, says Toga. I was so worried. I couldn't call you. I thought you were dead for good. Don't worry, says Izuku. Don't worry, asks Toga. Huh. Yeah, okay. That makes things a lot easier. Thanks, babe. You kill him? Asks Dabi. He's dead, says Izuku. Good job, dude, says Dabi. I'm gonna go take a bath, says Izuku. Hi, Dad, says Eri. Hey, sweetie. I'm gonna go take a bath, says Izuku. I'll be back. Yeah, you need a bath, says Eri without thinking about it. Izuku laughs hard. Not like the usual chuckle. Like a booming laugh. Honestly, hurt like hell. Keep that mentality in life, Eri. You'll go places, says Izuku as he heads to the bathroom. Izuku cleaned himself up. He let himself lay in the water for a while. The water was turning pink though. Probably time for him to get out of there. Toga set some clothes out for him. That was really nice of her. Now he doesn't need to call for help. Izuku strolls out of the bathroom wearing a pair of blue jeans and a white t-shirt. Izuku works his way to the couch and sets himself down with a groan. You good? Asks Dabi. Sure, just a little roughed up, says Izuku. Cool, says Dabi. Eri, how you been? Asks Izuku. Okay, says Eri, I missed you. Well, I'm gonna take a couple days off to get ready for U.A. entrance exams. So I'll be here mostly, says Izuku. Cool, says Eri. Honestly, yeah, says Izuku. You guys wanna do something? We've got Monopoly. Hell yeah, says Dabi. I'm gonna buy everything. Izuku explains the game to Eri. They go over the rule and get ready to play. Eri was the dog. Toga was the cat. Dabi was the boot. And Izuku was the car. Toga wasn't very good. She just tried to get as much money as possible. Dabi managed to buy up the most expensive property behind the start point. Izuku got all 4 train stations and a couple other properties. Eri ended up buying most of the property even though hers wasn't as valuable. She was able to take all of their money in a pretty steady fashion. Toga went bankrupt first as she sold all of her property and just kept losing money. Izuku flopped out second. He tried to use the train stations to stay away from Dabi so he doesn't lose a huge chunk of money. Dabi ended up getting 3 of his train stations. Eri picked up the rest. It stalemated for a while. Eri getting steady money as Dabi traveled the board. Dabi got big money whenever Eri ended up on his side of the board. Eri had to mortgage her property as she kept losing big money. Eventually Eri ran out of money and lost to Dabi. Izuku had fallen back asleep like an hour earlier. Izuku shot awake when he heard Toga shout to celebrate Dabi's victory over the child. "Good for him. Good game, kid," says Dabi. "You just can't beat my big brother skills. Good job, man," says Izuku, still not really awake. "It's what I do," says Dabi. "We should do that more often," says Izuku. "I've got tons of different board games around here somewhere," says Toga. Like Izuku said, he did take a couple days off. He spent a lot of time with his family. Apparently Dabi was really good at board games and card games. He was mostly lucky, but he was still really good somehow. Dabi's finally about to lose a game. They're all playing Uno. Dabi has like 20 cards. Izuku places a card down and calls Uno. Dabi smirks at him and plays an incredible, awe-inspiring string of cards, each of which chain into the next and skip Izuku's turn and deal. Uno calls Dabi before placing his final card and winning the game. "Well, I'll be," says Izuku. Toga places her hand on her chest and falls back like she's having a heart attack. Eri mimics Izuku and just scratches the back of her head. "Unbeatable," says Izuku. "You're unbeatable. All of my cosmic luck goes straight into any game I play," says Dabi. Izuku was helping Mai get ready for her entrance exam too. It was recommended that support course students get some recommendations for people they've helped out. Izuku and Mai actually built his cars and his van's engine together. Recently Izuku bought back that motorcycle he traded to Grin, and she worked on that for him too. Izuku planned on buying a small truck eventually. They'd probably end up tuning that up together. Izuku ended up getting pretty good with engines, come to think of it. It was a couple of days before the entrance exam. The whole family was playing Uno when Izuku got a phone call. He slides his phone out of his pocket. It was President Mick. "What was he calling for?" Says Izuku. "You're good," says Dabi. "8. Says Izuku before picking up the phone. "Hey man. Hey lil listener. How you been?" asks Mick. "I've been good. Taking it easy before the exam and all that," says Izuku. Cool," says Mick. "Hey, sorry to spring this on you." Izuku guckles. "But would you mind driving our son to the exam? He doesn't want to go with us. He's kinda emo and doesn't want to be seen with his cool dads and cool mom," says Mick. "I don't mind. Give him my number, tell him to text me and set up a time," says Izuku. "Uno. Cool, thanks. I mean it, thanks a million Midoriya," says Mick. "Hey man. Don't worry about it. I was already driving some people there anyway," says Izuku in reference to Mai. "Well, thanks again. I won't keep you," says Mick. "See you, big man," says Izuku. "See you," says Izuku. "Congrats on the win," says Dabi. "Oh shit, he finally beat him." "It's what I do," says Izuku. "Now you just need about 50, maybe 60 more," says Dabi. "No thanks dude," says Izuku. "Let me know if you change your mind," says Dabi as he gets up and stalks off. Eri retreats to her room. She likes Izuku's company, but she spent a good chunk of her time alone. Toga walks over to the kitchen to find something to eat. Izuku's phone starts to ring again. He pulls it out to see if Mick's boy is calling him already. It's Mitsuki Bakugo. Oh god, oh shit. She better not. "Hey auntie," says Izuku. "Hey kiddo. How you doing?" she asks. "I'm doing alright. How are you?" How's the family? Asks Izuku. I'm good. The family's good. You mind if I spring a little something on you? Asks Mitsuki. He wants to say no so bad. Sure, what do you need? Asks Izuku. Could you drive my kid to the U.A entrance exam? You're applying, right? Asks Mitsuki. I am, and I could drive Bukigu's over there for sure. Says Izuku. That's great. Thank you, Izuku. Says Mitsuki. It's really no trouble. Says Izuku. Thanks again. Says Mitsuki. Love you, bye. Love you, bye. Replies Izuku. Who you loving? Asks Toga. It's just my aunt, don't worry. Says Izuku. Okay, cool. Says Toga. The next thing Izuku needed to take care of was registering the tools he was gonna bring to the exam. It wasn't hard and Mick helped him out with it. He was able to register his axe although he didn't want to use it. People had seen Katsueki use the double-sided axe and he just felt a little wary of the thought. Then he registered a sledgehammer. A lead pipe that was 6 feet or 1.8 meters. A switchblade. And about 12 feet or 3.7 meters of chain. He didn't think he'd need the chain, but it was something he could wrap around himself and use to hold his tools so it would help him out a bit. He was about as ready as he could be for the entrance exam. He just needed to get a little blood in him, but he had that covered. Grin had info on a pickpocket. He wasn't that bad a guy from what Izuku could tell. He was just gonna take what he needed, rough the guy up and help him out of his debt. It went about as well as Izuku thought it would. He knocked him out, took some blood. It felt good to get something in him after his fight with Jaguaro. He almost slipped a little and took more than he really needed. He was able to catch himself, though just barely. Izuku left a good stack of yen and note. If you keep stealing from people, I will find you again. I'll help you out of your debt, just stop robbing people. Do some good in the world. Izuku felt the note said what he needed it to. With that, Izuku went home for the night and readied himself for the exams tomorrow. Chapter 71. Holy Jesus, it's finally time. Izuku is actually hyped as hell. He got a whole gallon of blood last night. He's not gonna ask where Toga got it or why it was fresh, as that wasn't his business. God, he was excited. He was in the Midoriya van banging his head to his music and slapping his hands on the wheel. He was tearing down the road on his way to Bukigu's house. That certainly dulled his excitement. Still hyped, though. He parked outside and shot a text to Mitsuki telling her to send out her brat. Hey big man. Calls Izuku to Bukigu, while he waves to Mitsuki. You're not gonna pass. Says Bukigu as he gets in the van. Not a neck in sight and you still go for the jugular? Calm down, man. Says Izuku. Just warning you ahead of time. Says Bukigu. Boo dude. I'll be fine. If I fail I'll just kill myself. Says Izuku nonchalantly. Now he didn't really want to do that, but he needed to see how Bukigu would respond to that. Apparently he wasn't gonna get a response at all. This ass Jack gets in his van, insults him and doesn't even have the common courtesy to respond to him. Don't. Says Bukigu. Well, it wasn't much. It was really stiff too. But it was something. I'm just playing. I just go apply to Shiketsu. Says Izuku. You think they'd take you? Asks Bukigu. You think they'd take you? Asks Izuku. Duh, dumbass. Says Bukigu. Izuku smiles at him. You know, you could lick my balls. Not implying anything. Just an idea. Fuck you. Says Bukigu. Hey, we got 2 more stops before UA. Says Izuku. We got some people to pick up. Fine, whatever. Says Bukigu. They fall into an uncomfortable silence after that. Izuku ignores it and sings along with his playlist, and Bukigu just looks out the window. They pull up to Hatsume's lab and Izuku shoots her a text. While they wait for Hatsume to come out, Bukigu leans down and picks up a glass bottle of Stella Artois. The hell is this? Asks Bukigu. It's Booze. It's Belgian. says Izuku. I should tell your Inca you've got this, says Bikagu. For sure. Let me just tell Auntie you told me to kill myself, says Izuku. Bikagu glares at him. Square up, bitch, says Izuku before Bikagu can say anything. I'd run your shit, pussy, says Bikagu. Would ya? Asks Izuku. He's actually really mad. Would ya? Yeah, I starts Bikagu. You know, I really thought about it. I did. I didn't do it, but I wanted to, says Izuku. If I didn't meet the right people, damn, I probably woulda. I don't know why I even agreed to this. I can't fucking stand you. God damn, I can't. Bikagu starts to say something. Shut. Starts Izuku before sighing and pinching the bridge of his nose. Let's just not talk. Izuku takes his silence as an agreement. Hatsumi opens the door to the back seat of the van and slides in. Big Green. How ya been? Asks Hatsumi. Hatsumi, says Izuku excitedly like nothing just happened. I've been great. How about you? Building and shit. You know, says Hatsumi. This is my old buddy and honorary cousin, Bikagu Katsuki, says Izuku. Nice to meet you, B-man, says Hatsumi. He just nods in response. Alright, gravy train leaving the station. We have one more stop to make before heading to UA, says Izuku. Where we headed? Asks Hatsumi. We've got another test taker to pick up, says Izuku. Bitchin', says Hatsumi. You built any cool shit lately? Asks Izuku. Made a bomb. The Ministry of Defense had to confiscate that one, says Hatsumi. Damn, says Izuku. A couple minutes later they're outside a fairly nice apartment building. Izuku shoots a text to Shinsu telling him to come out. Like, a minute later Shinsu is getting in the car. Hey man, says Izuku. Hey, says Shinsu, this guy didn't come off as very social. Sucks for him. How you doing, boss? Asks Izuku. Okay, you? Asks Shinsu. Doing great, says Izuku. Hey, I gotta ask. You've got 3 parents, right? How is that? 'Cause I've only got one. Although I do have a couple daddies, if you know what I mean. Izuku laughs at his joke and nudges Bikagu with his elbow. To his surprise and maybe delight, Bikagu laughs. Holy shit, Bikagu never laughs. It's pretty nice. Aizawa's technically my dad, but the rest of them do what they can, says Shinsu. Cool, says Izuku. So are they all about it? What? Asks Shinsu. Are they into polygamy or what's going on there? Asks Izuku. That's not their style, says Shinsu. So Nimri's single? Asks Izuku. He can see Shinsu glaring at him from his rear-view mirror. That joke was clearly a step in the wrong direction. I'm kidding, by the way. I already have a girl. She's a hell of a girl too, says Izuku, causing a comfortable lull in the conversation until they make it to UA. Izuku parks his van and they all hop out. See you, says Mai as she jogs off to wherever she takes her test. See you, meet back here if you need a ride home, says Izuku. She's not with us? Asks Shinsu. No, she's going for the support course, says Izuku. Well, okay. See you back here, says Shinsu. Don't wanna walk with us? Asks Izuku. Sorry, no, says Shinsu. He was pretty nice about it. Guess it's just you and me, says Izuku. Whatever. I'm going, says Bikagu. Hey says Izuku. Just say it, says Bikagu. I really fucking hate you, dog, says Izuku. But the thing I hate about you the most is that I still care. So good luck. Don't need it, says Bikagu. You do though. Was that his way of wishing Izuku good luck? Was that an insult? Izuku's gonna take it like a compliment. Izuku makes his way to the gate. He's really here. He's finally gonna take the test. He trips. He's gonna die, holy fucking shit. He's gonna die in front of all these people. Oh my god. He's floating. Why is he floating? Wee? Hey, are you alright? Asks some cute brunette. Wow, a really cute brunette, but Izuku isn't allowed to have that feeling, so he crushes it. Squish. I'm fine, how are you? Asks Izuku as he starts spinning in the air. I'm okay. I'm gonna put you down now, says brunette. Haha. Just like old Yeller, says Izuku. What? Asks brunette. It's nothing, says Izuku before righting himself and falling to the ground. Are you sure you're okay? Asks brunette. Oh, absolutely. I'm fine, says Izuku. Well, alright then, good luck, says brunette. Good luck, says Izuku. Izuku makes his way in and takes the written portion of the test. He kinda breezed through it. He always was pretty smart. It was the next part that had him worried. He could fight quirkless, sure, but the thing he said he'd be fighting robots. It was a good thing he brought that sledgehammer. He could use the axe, but he didn't really want to. He'd use it if he had to. For now though, he had to head into this big auditorium. Lucky him, his seat is right next to Bukigu's. Funny seeing you here, says Izuku. Bukigu mumbled something like, oh my fucking god. He's probably real tired of Izuku's shit. Well, that's too damn bad. Oh hey, it's Present Mick. He's pretty cool, says Izuku. Shut up, says Bukigu. He's tough too. He could probably kick your ass, says Izuku. I'll kill you, says Bukigu. Couldn't kick my ass though, I'm too tough, says Izuku. He hears Mick shout something along the lines of everybody say hey. Izuku decides to now would be a good time to chime in. Hell yeah, let's fucking ga ooh. Wow, literally nobody joined him. Like he was really the only one. In fact, a lot of people looked kinda pissed. Especially that dude with the glasses. Actually, that guy looked pretty familiar. Izuku couldn't figure it out though. That's not at all what I asked for, but I appreciate the enthusiasm, says Mick. Izuku shoots him a thumbs up, that is. Izuku leans over to Bukigu. Bukigu visibly scowls at this. Whatever Izuku wants to say, Bukigu doesn't want to hear it. He took that really well, says Izuku. Like, can you imagine the reactions that'd get if someone else was giving a presentation? And, you. Comes the glasses dude, who is now pointing right at him. Izuku turns his thumb against his chest, pointing to himself. Me, he mouths. Yes, you. You've been talking this whole time. You've even disrupted the speaker. If you're not gonna take this seriously, then you should just leave, says Glasses. Geez, this guy's pretty intense. Oh shit. He. You look like my buddy Tensai, says Izuku. He looks visibly taken back. You know my brother? Your initial T's little brother? Asks Izuku. Wow, good for you honestly. Hey, when you see him tell him I said hi. Oh, okay, says Glasses. Wow, that distracted him from the topic completely. Izuku did a pretty good job with that. He tunes out the rest of the presentation. Apparently not all test takers were testing at the same place, which was good. There wasn't enough room for him and Bukigu in the same test site. Izuku, a bunch of other kids loaded up onto a bus. He probably looked kinda scary with the lead pipe and sledgehammer chained to his body. Everybody got off the bus and started standing around. Izuku saw the nice brunette from earlier. He never got her name. At least he doesn't think he did. He'll go talk to her. He would if there weren't a large hand on his shoulder. Did he get grabbed by a gorilla? Oh, it was just Glasses. Oh hey man, says Izuku. Are you here to distract people and make them fail? Asks Glasses. What a baseless accusation. Actually, Izuku kinda sees where he's coming from. Actually, he's got an idea. Yeah, actually, he whispers, I work for you. A good job finding me out. Just don't let anybody else know, okay? Oh, says Glasses. What was Tensai's last name? Promise, says Izuku. Of course. I didn't realize you were hired or I wouldn't have said anything. Says Initial Junior. It's cool. You're looking out for your fellow test taker. More power to you. Says Izuku. Start. Comes mixed voice. Izuku and Glasses didn't hesitate. They both took off into the opening gate. The test wasn't going too bad, all things considered. He was actually having a really good time. Like a really good time. People were starting to give him weird looks when he screamed about how fun this was, or how his blood was pumping. They really should pay more attention. They probably won't pass. He probably won't pass either though. He only has 20 points. Which wasn't terrible all things considered. Was that an earthquake? No, it was the biggest robot Izuku's ever seen. What did Hatsune do this time? Well, as good a time as it would be. He's not fighting that, it's huge. Help me. Comes the brunette's voice. Okay, caution to the wind, let's fucking do this. He bum rushes the robot, digs the cutie out and tosses her out of the way. He could have been a little gentler, but its massive fucking hand was coming down on them. The hand hit where Izuku was standing. When the hand raised, the plate was missing and its wires could be seen. A couple seconds later, Izuku pops out of its shoulder. Izuku takes his axe back out and starts chopping at its neck like it's a tree. Timber! Shouts Izuku as its robo-head plummets. Izuku could go for some robo-head right about now. He. Look at me, I took down the big foo, starts Izuku before the robot explodes, sending him higher into the air than he was earlier. Well, he's falling to his death. He can either out himself as not quirkless or die. He's gonna die. Wait, no he's not. He wraps the chain around the axe handle and throws at it a roof. It hooks the roof. The line goes tight. The axe slips. He's still falling. God damn it. He feels roughly 3.5 tons of force slap him clean across the face the second before he hits the ground. It's his first meeting with All Might all over again. Except instead of the world's strongest hero, it was some 14 maybe 15-year-old brunette. Izuku's floating again. Oh, it's the brunette. Oh my god, are you okay? She asks. He forgot to mention this, but that explosion kinda messed him up. He thinks he has a concussion. No, scratch that. She's too blurry, he totally has one. His shirt's kinda shredded. He's bleeding from a couple places here and there. And there. And there. Actually, he's in really bad shape. Wow. He did not expect this today. Oh, it happens. Says Izuku. It does? Asks brunette. Wow, she's funny too. Sometimes. Says Izuku. I'm gonna put you down now. Says brunette before doing exactly what she said and more as she promptly vomits. Just like old Yeller. Says Izuku. At this point, recovery girl comes by. What happened to you? She asks. Fought the big guy. Says Izuku. Hey, I think her ankle's broken. She kisses brunette and her bones realign. She turns to Izuku, who is limping away as he doesn't know if recovery girl's powers work on him and doesn't think this would be the time or place to find out. Where do you think you are going? Asks Chio. Probably Wendy's. Says Izuku. You don't think there's anything more important? Asks Chio. Well, I've got a buddy with a healing quirk who doesn't take time off your lifespan. Says Izuku. Are you concussed? Asks Chio. Absolutely. No ma'am. Says Izuku. I'm not allowed to forcibly heal you unless you're a student, so you're technically free to go, but you're also really dumb. Says Chio. Fair. Thank you. Says Izuku before leaving. He still never got that brunette's name. It's fine. A little while later and Izuku was driving everybody home. But true to his word, he did take them to Wendy's, his treat. Also, he picked some up for the family as he did not want to cook right now. The cashier at the window seemed surprised to see him and even more surprised to see the state he was in. Not long after he dropped everybody off and headed home, he deserved a break. Not just from the exam, but knowing people are taking pictures of you kinda drains your social battery. He could finally sit back and relax. Grin kicks his front door open. Kid, the syndicate bosses are meeting up. We've got a genuine chance to cripple or crush them. We've got a lot of work to do and a couple of days to do it. Get up, let's get going, says Grin. Guess not. Chapter 72. Grin was right. The bosses were meeting up. The bosses and their closest and most trusted cronies. They really did have a genuine shot at taking them. Naturally, Izuku gathered up everyone he could. When he was done, he had a small army with him. 119 men and women. He had 108 of the usual vigilantes. He also had Toga, Dabi, Stain, Ruby, Hisashi, Hawks, Miruko, Knuckle Duster, Goichi, Popstep, and himself. The meeting was being held in California, in the summer home of the Serpent himself. It was a sizable beach house away from people. The plan was relatively simple. A small team would sneak into the meeting with Izuku. The rest were going to take the courtyard where the majority of the snakes were. Izuku knew Japan's boss wouldn't be there as they were only loosely associated with the syndicate. They were legally a yakuza, so they kept their heads down and away from the syndicate's major crimes. It was fine though, Izuku would deal with it later. All they needed was Toga's signal. She was inside the meeting pretending to be one of the guards. They could hear everything going on around her. The meeting was just getting started. All they needed was the knowledge guards were getting sent out of the room. Then Izuku, Stain, Hawks, and Miruko would dive through the window from where Izuku and Hawks were circling above. Toga was glad she was able to help. She wanted to stab these people. Izuku hates these people, so she hates them too. Someone new entered the room. Sorry I'm late. I know I don't usually come to these, but this felt necessary, says the newcomer. It's fine. We're glad to have you. Comes the snake. He sounds how you'd expect him to. I'm sorry, my plans have backfired. I do have a plan to fix it, says the newcomer. Snake raises his hand to silence him. Before we talk about this, guards step outside. No. They should stay, says newcomer. Why's that? Asks Snake. Izuku didn't like what he was hearing. Did they know they were coming? Was it just the new guy? I think they know we're meeting, says newcomer. Well, that answers that question. Before they have time to react, Izuku shoots the text to Kurogiri and starts to dive with Stain and Miruko. By the way, neither of them knew it was Stain. Dozens of portals open and drop vigilantes onto the beach or in the courtyard. They completely took them by surprise. Izuku's team dove through the window. Toga started stabbing. She sticks to what she knows. Stain darted around the room, slashing everybody he could. Miruko ended up wrestling with a man made of metal. Hawks used his feathers to carry out the paralyzed snakes. Izuku ended up boxing with the head snake himself. Izuku finds himself being tackled through the window they just came through. Stain knew his blade failed to pierce 4 of them. The snake, the metal man, the humanoid dragon, and the swordsman. Although the swordsman was fast enough to dodge, the dragon flew out the window to fight Hawks. The rabbit and the metal man crashed into the floor below them and continued fighting out there. The speedster drew 2 short swords and held them in front of himself defensively. It's been a good while since Stain fought someone faster than himself. He wasn't worried though. Miruko ended up kicking the steel bastard through a floor and following him. Every time she hit him it sent vibrations up her whole body. Every time he hit her it felt like a bat. She could take it though. She was the toughest son of a bitch there was. Hawks's feathers couldn't pierce the dragon's scales. They could slow him down but they couldn't hurt him. Hawks could fly circles around this guy but it doesn't do him any good if he can't hurt him. Izuku had overdosed twice and drank himself to death once, and he was absolutely certain that he'd never been hit with a more potent poison. He knows it's technically venom, but whatever. The blue bastard struck him in the neck when they fell out the window. He was moving really well. Just constantly flowing. The only other person he's seen move like that was a sober Dabi, and that was pretty rare. I'm getting a little distracted. The moral of the story was Izuku's getting his ass beat. Completely beat. Even when he does hit the slippery fucker he shrugs it off. Izuku finds himself on one knee, his vision blurry. His head hurt like hell. This poison might actually kill him. He can distantly hear Dabi cackling like a madman. Actually, that's getting closer. He feels the heat of the sun and watches the snake get blasted back by a ball of fire. "Shit, dog. You good?" asks Dabi. Izuku gets back on his feet, the venom purged from his system. "Let's kick his ass." Snake promptly sprints into the house with Izuku and Dabi tailing him. They lose him until they hear a garage door open. Izuku runs through walls in the direction the noise came from until he sees an armored van pulling out. He grabs it and lifts the back wheels. "Torch it!" shouts Izuku, hoping Dabi could set off the engine. Before Dabi could torch it, Izuku feels a sharp pain in the back of his thigh as the speedster from earlier stabs him. The van slips and takes off. The speedster sprints alongside it. The metal man goes crashing through a wall above them and lands on top of the van. He points at Miruko and laughs as he gets carted away. Dragon perches on the back of the van and lets it carry him off. Hawks is following close behind them when a gust of wind hits him from below and flings him away. Those four got away, but there are still more here to deal with. Which is what Izuku does. Not too long after that, the fighting stopped. Toga looked happy. She was covered in blood. Dabi stepped out to go for a smoke. Izuku feels a tapping on his shoulder. It's Victor. "Wolfman," says Izuku, "what's going on?" Victor clears his throat. "We lost 22 men. Whoa. A lot of things passed through Izuku's head right then. The thing that popped up the most was how we took them by surprise. They shouldn't have been able to put up that much of a fight. But he knew that guy knew. Shit, he should have called it off. Fuck. 22 people. That's a lot of people. Damn. Also, we don't know where Doc is," says Victor. "I'll see if I can pick up his scent." "Can you take care of things here?" asks Izuku. "Of course," says Victor. Izuku did end up picking up Doc's trail. He found Doc's horse before he found Doc. It had been shot. Poor guy. Izuku really like him. It hasn't been dead for too long. He sees blood leading away from the horse a little further down the beach. He followed it down the beach a ways and saw Doc talking to somebody with a spider quirk. The guy had 6 arms. They both had their hands over their guns. Faster than Izuku could process, they drew. Doc shot a gun out of all 6 of the spider's hands. Izuku strolled up behind Doc. "Well, you caught me," asks Spider. "You gonna kill me?" Doc shoots him clean in the face with his other revolver. He turns to look at Izuku and shoots him 5 more times. "I think you got him the first time," says Izuku. Doc just chuckles a little. "You know that guy?" asks Izuku. Doc takes a step forward and starts coughing. It sounds awful. Izuku can hear the blood in his throat and smell the blood on his lips as he coughs it out. He falls onto his side and Izuku runs and kneels next to him. "Doc?" asks Izuku. Doc steadies his breath. "I'm not dead yet. I don't think I've got a lot of time left though." Izuku gently picks Doc up and carries him back. "I could always turn you?" asks Izuku. "Nah. I killed that guy. I got nothing left to do in this life except leave my guns and my hat to you," says Doc. "They're yours." "I don't want them," says Izuku. "Won't be mine for long," says Doc. Izuku sighs. "I'm sorry about your horse. It's a real shame," says Doc. "He was a good horse. Loyal. I really can't thank him enough." They didn't talk for the rest of the walk back. Izuku set Doc down and told him to get some rest. Izuku wanted to sit with him. He wanted to mourn his losses. But before he could do either of those things, he needed to get people home before more snakes, heroes, or cops showed up. They cuffed the remaining villains and were going to portal them to police departments. They'd caught roughly 500. They'd killed a whole lot more though. Dabi alone had to have melted at least 100, maybe 2. Smelled awful. Victor mowed down 80-ish with his Gatling gun. Wasn't hard. He stepped out of a portal just a couple feet away and just started mowing them down. Altogether they must have killed 1,000. It was crazy to think the syndicate was even that big. For everyone they killed. It still didn't feel like enough. What a terrible thought. Izuku wasn't too sure how he felt about having it. Well, he was. But he didn't want to be. He's thought about it for a while. While he's trying to sleep, when he's driving, whenever he's doing something that doesn't require his entire attention, he thinks about it. Why shouldn't he just kill them? They deserve it. They're awful. They aren't just bad. They couldn't settle for being just bad. They're awful. Even when he arrests them, they get off easier than they should. They've got lawyers. They break eco throughout. They had the courts in their pockets. People have tried to change that, but it's never worked. Were they really out of options? He didn't know what it was. The build-up of all his time thinking. Losing 22 good friends, damn near family in less than an hour. The absolutely enthralling scent of blood in the air. He knew what to do, what he needed to do. "Hey Wolfman," says Izuku, "can I borrow your gun?" "Sure, but you'd better take care of her," says Victor. "Winkster," says Izuku, "separate the leaders from the grunts." "You got it, boss," says Hawks. "Whatcha planning here?" asks Miruko. "I'ma kill him," says Izuku. "Huh. Not exactly my style, but honestly, good for you, man." "They've got it coming," says Miruko. "I know," says Izuku. "Were your eyes always glowing and red?" asks Miruko. "No," says Izuku. "Huh. Neat," says Miruko. "All right." Izuku calls into the crowd of villains before him, "We're gonna deal with you. Any minors stand up and group together over there. If you're in the minor group and are an adult, I'm gonna cave your skull in." They do as they're told. "You gonna blast the leaders?" asks Tabi. "Nah," says Izuku before firing into the common grunts, "but not the kids." "Never kids." "Jesus," says Victor. "They were gonna get off easy anyway. We've seen it a dozen times," says Izuku. "They don't deserve power over people. But it's a damn travesty that they have influence in the courts. We're out of effective options." "No, I get it. They took a lot from me. From people like me. I get it. I just wasn't ready," says Victor. "Sorry," says Izuku. "It's cool," says Victor. "I really am sorry," says Izuku. "Now if you'll excuse me for 1 second. Izuku checks all the minors. There were about 50-ish of them. Too damn many to let get away, but Izuku wasn't willing to kill kids, even if they did deserve it. "All minors, a series of portals are going to open up that lead to prisons. They know you're coming. I tipped them off. You're allowed to stay here, but I wouldn't recommend it." Izuku sends his text to Kurogiri and he does his thing. All the kids entered. Good. He was bluffing with his underlying threat. "Now, all you higher-up bastards. I'm not sending you to prison," says Izuku. "I'm taking you to an area that I've prepared to interrogate you. I want leads. If you comply, you go to jail. If you refuse, I'm gonna have to kill you," says Izuku, shrugging at the end. When did it stop bothering him? He corrals the remaining villains through a portal to a holding cell that Grin provided for him. He made sure to get all of his own home. All that were still alive. He felt bad dropping Doc off, but he insisted it was fine. Izuku respected his wishes, but he will be visiting him tomorrow. After the raid, Izuku had time to think about what he'd done and all. He felt not terrible, but still bad. Not bad because he killed those unarmed handcuffed people, but because it didn't. Still doesn't bother him. People wasn't the right word though, was it? They robbed, murdered, raped, hell, some of them even molested. They'd have killed all of them if they'd been the ones captured. Shit, they'd be willing to mow down civilians if it helped them. No, they deserved what he did. He made the right call and he doesn't regret it at all. Why would he? Chapter 73. Izuku didn't sleep the night after the raid. It wasn't a night of tossing and turning, he just only sleeps once a month. It used to be weekly, but he's needed it less and less. He's undergone a couple more changes, but the important thing is that he had all night to think. He really wanted to feel bad. He killed a lot of people last night. Almost 500. It's actually insane to think about how high his body count was now. One recurring thought that popped into his head was that he did the wrong thing. And as much as he tried, he just couldn't agree with that. He was sure that when everything settled, Aizawa would call him and yell at him. He might even stop trying to help him and just arrest him at that point. Izuku didn't think that would make him feel guilty either. It wasn't that Izuku thought murder was okay for him. It's just that he didn't consider it murder. Sex traffickers aren't people. Murderers aren't people. Rapists, pedophiles, molesters, aren't people. So it's not murder. It's not a necessary evil either. Necessary evils don't exist. If it's necessary, it's not evil, and neither is he. That's enough reflection for now. He'll have time for more when he visits Doc, which is what he's currently doing. He strolls up to Doc's camp. Doc hasn't moved since Izuku laid him back here. Oh God, no. Doc raises his head to look at him. Oh good, he's still alive. He looks awful though. Hey, Doc. You breathe in any easier? Asks Izuku. Doc shakes his head no. Sorry to hear that. Says Izuku. Me too. Says Doc. Should you talk? Asks Izuku. I want to. I'm not sure how much longer I can. Says Doc. I'll stick with you. Says Izuku. Doc sounds awful too. Thank you. Says Doc. Geez, his voice is raspy. What you wanna talk about? Asks Izuku. I'd like to be buried somewhere pretty high up with a nice view. It doesn't need to be anywhere specific. Just face me to the sunrise and I'll be happy. Says Doc. I've got a place in mind. Says Izuku after a moment of thought. Thank you. Says Doc before taking a break to get some air in his lungs. That guy you shot yesterday, who was he? Asks Izuku. An old friend. Kinda. We ran together. You know about all that though. Says Doc. Honestly, we've never talked about it. I looked into you before we met, but I never knew what happened to your gang. Says Izuku. There's nothing to say. But that guy had it coming for what he did to me and mine. Says Doc. Well, I'm glad he got it. Says Izuku. Doc coughs out a little blood. Me too. The two fall into another silence, only broken by Doc's panting. What happened after you set me down? I heard shots. Says Doc. I took Victor's gat and shot the snakes. Says Izuku. Damn, I'm glad I turned my shit around before you got your hands on me. Says Doc. Izuku chuckles at that. It's good to laugh. Anything else happen? Asks Doc. I only killed the muscle. I let the kids go. Well, actually I put them in prison, but I didn't kill them. The leaders we caught are gonna get interrogated. We need names, locations, crimes. They know them better than anyone else and we have them. Says Izuku. You gonna go easy on them if they're compliant? Asks Doc. I'ma kill them either way. It's up to them how much it hurts. Says Izuku. Harsh. Says Doc. You think so? Asks Izuku. No, honestly. Says Doc. Sometimes I still feel like I deserve to get killed. Guess I won't have to wait too long for the dough, will I? Says Doc. Probably not. Says Izuku, running a hand through his hair. Another lull in the conversation. Doc's breath gets a little worse. Why'd you push yourself so hard? Asks Izuku. Even though I knew it would kill me faster? Asks Doc. Yeah. Replies Izuku. I don't know. I figured I'd squeeze the most out of what time I have left. Maybe I could have done more if I'd lived longer. That just didn't seem appealing to me though. Couldn't tell you why. Says Doc. You're a good man. Says Izuku. No, I'm not. Says Doc. course you are, says Izuku. Just cause I was good to you doesn't mean I'm good, says Doc. I think I'd know myself a little better than you do. You'd be surprised, says Izuku. Would I? Asks Doc. I think you would, says Izuku. Maybe, says Doc. I still don't think my sins are the kind you can atone for. They're not. But you, right now, are still a good person despite what you did. And you did a lot, says Izuku. If I hadn't become a vigilante, would you have chased me? Asks Doc. Without a doubt. Probably would I try knowing you. But half the people we work with are the kind of person I'd hunt if they weren't vigilantes. I'm not sure it's me genuinely believing in second chances or I just want their help. Either way, I'm probably a hypocrite for it, says Izuku. Probably, says Doc before breaking into another coughing fit. Kid, says Doc. Hums Izuku. Doc hands Izuku his hat. Izuku'd never seen him without it. He'd never gotten a real good look at his eyes either. It was part of the way Doc wore it. He didn't want people to know where he was looking. Take it, says Doc. Izuku doesn't say anything, he just puts it on his head. Doc hands Izuku his revolver. Not actually his, the one Izuku lent him for the raid yesterday. The one he killed that guy with. Once again Izuku takes it without saying anything. Doc undoes his gun belt and hands it over. This time Izuku says something. I'm not taking that, says Izuku. Take it, says Doc. No, says Izuku. Why not? Asks Doc. You took the hat. It's yours, says Izuku. The hat was mine, says Doc. You want it back? Says Izuku. You know that's not what I'm saying, says Doc. It doesn't feel right, says Izuku. I'm dying here. You're gonna make a dying man sad? Asks Doc. Izuku sighs and takes it. I'm sorry. It's fine, says Doc. That's not what he meant. Izuku was gonna respond but Doc started coughing up blood. Izuku wasn't sure what to say anyways. They continued like this for a while. With the breaks between talking, Izuku's been there most of the day already. He stays there for another day. About that time Doc stopped breathing. He was gone. It was weird. He knew this was coming. Everybody knew this was coming. This one hurt more than the ones he lost the day before though. Maybe it's because he watched this one happen. Maybe it's because he felt more anger than grief when they died. Izuku's not a psychologist, he wouldn't know. His phone rings. He really doesn't want to talk right now. If it's not someone important he's just gonna ignore it. It's Aizawa. Should he answer? He doesn't want to. Whatever, let's just see what he wants. What's up? Asks Izuku. What's up? That's all you have to say? Asks Aizawa. Should I have more to say? Asks Izuku. Yes. Grits out Aizawa. Did I do something wrong? Asks Izuku. I don't know, maybe the prisoners you killed. Says Aizawa. Oh, them. I remember them. They kinda had it coming. Says Izuku. Look, I get it. I really do, but you don't just get to decide how someone gets punished. Says Aizawa. I really do get it, but breaking the law makes you like them. Not to be rude or anything, but you're retarded. I'm not doing this to follow the law, I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. Now, as much as I love talking to you, I have to go bury Texas Red's body. He passed away about 3 minutes ago, says Izuku. I'm sorry for your loss, says Aizawa. Yeah, whatever. I'll call you back whenever. Probably not soon though. Bye, says Izuku before hanging up. Izuku looks back over to Doc's body. Now to get to burying him. High up, nice view, facing the sunrise. Izuku has an idea for it. He's gonna need permission, but he's sure he'll get it. About a half hour later, with the help of Kurogiri and, with Ruby's permission, Izuku was burying Doc on Ruby's property. The one with the cabin. Izuku dug out a grave for him. tied two pieces of wood together to make a cross and stuck it into the ground. A better man than he ever could have hoped to be, is what Izuku wrote on it. He let people know what happened. He told Dabi and Toga he wouldn't be home tonight. He made sure the vigilante's new doc passed. He was going to arrange a funeral for him. The vigilantes didn't really know him. He kept his distance from people mostly. But he'd saved their lives a couple times. They'd want to pay their respects. All that would have to wait for now though. Izuku's been putting off mourning. Always busy. He never thought he'd find himself too busy to feel. This is how he finds himself on the cabin roof, staring at the stars. He was a couple drinks in. Kinda painfully numb. But still numbingly pained. He was listening to Should Have Been a Cowboy. It was Doc's favorite song. He said it made him feel like he was living someone's dream even if it wasn't his own. He managed to drink himself to sleep. Although his hangover didn't do him any favors. He shakes it off pretty quick though. He should probably call Aizawa back. He was mad cause he was worried. Izuku wasn't sure he wanted to talk. Although he did want to argue. He wanted to scream his lungs out and call Aizawa a dumbass. He shouldn't take it out on Aizawa like that, but at the same time Aizawa shouldn't be such a dumbass. Hello? Comes Aizawa's voice. Hey man. Says Izuku. Oh. Hey. Are you alright? Asks Aizawa. Sure. I'm fine. Says Izuku. Okay. If you need to talk I'm here. Says Aizawa. We'll get to that. Where were we yesterday? Asks Izuku. That's what you want to talk about? Asks Aizawa. Yep. Replies Izuku. Okay. I guess. Says Aizawa. So I think you were saying I shouldn't do my thing. Because the government and its heroes do it. Right? Asks Izuku. Exactly. It's unlawful. Says Aizawa. Well that's a stupid argument and here's why. It just doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? It doesn't work because with the increasing soft-on-crime mentality paired with quirks being brought into existence, forms of government all around the world are having trouble managing crime. Are you familiar with social contract? Asks Izuku. Yeah. Replies Aizawa, but the heroes are shut up. Says Izuku, social contract isn't being upheld on the government's end. We relinquish some freedoms in exchange for protection, and by extinction other freedoms. But we aren't being protected the way we used to be. Either we need a new government, B we need no government as they can't control or protect people anymore, or C my personal favorite we educate and allow people on how to defend themselves from people who would take from them. The government would support this or at the very fucking least decriminalize it. Anybody could be doing what I'm doing. The fact I have a small army of vigilantes backing me up further proves my point. The second these syndicates that have control of our courts, our police, politicians, and even heroes realize that all it takes is an average guy or gal or a group thereof, to just fucking kill them, they'll be shaking in their boots. Sure, but starts Aizawa. Izuku's having too good of a time to give Aizawa the stage right now. Although he does hope that they get to have a fleshed out version of this argument later. I'm not finished. Says Izuku, if more people just said fuck it and killed their local villain we wouldn't have these fucking problems. We wouldn't even need to have this dumbass conversation. I want people to realize that it doesn't take a government license or funding. All it takes is drive. And maybe a knife, gun or bat. Whatever you can get your hands on really. Jesus kid. Says Aizawa. Yeah. I know. Hey listen man. Thanks for letting me rant like that, I really needed it. If you want to actually debate this I'd love to, just not now. I've got like 30 funerals I need to get to. It's gonna be one hell of a week. Says Izuku, so I'll see you later. Bye. Author's note: the end of that chapter was actually super fun to write. The start was a nice melancholy which was enjoyable, although I don't think fun is the right word. I feel I'm having the same problem I did with the last chapter where something felt too sudden. On one Handok's death was sudden in the chapter, but it's been building up since he was introduced. It's probably alright, although I'm not sure I spent enough time on it this chapter. The thought is that it's gonna hurt more in the chapters to come at unexpected times. Like he would have loved this thought that reminds Izuku. That's a wrap, folks, but until I find a way to solve the issue of why my audio suddenly stopped 40 seconds before the end, I will use this message. Anyways, see you all next part.